disgraceful. And that was that Senator Tim Scott. Did not vote for him. What is wrong with that man? What is wrong with the people of South Carolina? We put a man like that in the Senate. He's ridiculous. He ought to be thrown out of that office. And I understand as a black person running against him this year, and God knows, I hope he wins. This man is ridiculous. This man, a black man, and let me tell you what really hurt me. When I saw Mitt Romney, a man who ran against President Obama, he stood alone. And all other Republicans left the hall. But Romney stood up there and clapped. In fact, I'm going to write him a letter. I'm going to write him a letter. Let me say this to you, too. He not only voted against this lady, this judge, this lady who was intimately qualified. In fact, she was more qualified than anybody else that would sit on that Supreme Court. And this man had the audacity to vote against history. The people in South Carolina should throw him not under the bus, kick him up under the bus. He's disgraceful. And the next thing I like to say, he also voted against President Obama's program that gave $1,400 to African Americans and the rest of the nation. Where's his thinking? Where's the thinking of people of South Carolina? We put somebody in there like that. He's a disgrace. And I thank God that this lady had all the character and the poise and the dignity. And all of us ought to be proud of her. Extremely proud of her. So I had to mention that was the person that struggled, and yet she became successful. And I'm saying this to say that she's also an example for other young women who would like to march forward. This country is 235 years old, 2 centuries, over 2 centuries. And this was the first African American. Now, Supreme Court, people would hear say, well, Supreme Court was not instituted until 2 years after the country was started in 1787. Supreme Court was set up in 1789. That's why she was repeating the fact that the country is 235 years, but the Supreme Court is only 233 years. That is because the court was set up under President George Washington 2 years after the country was in operation. The next thing I want to talk about is, and I hope that she will be and I pray to God, she'll be very successful on that code. But America knows that was disgraceful, the way they treated that lady. Absolutely disgraceful. The Republican Party is nothing but a cult, bowing down to one man. And let me let the people know this. The average president does not know. The president is overhead, they call him the standard bearer of his party, whether he wins or loses. Now, Trump is still the standard bearer of the Republican Party until they get another Republican president. And I hope that never happens. I hope it's disgraceful what they're doing for voting, what they're doing against people of color, and particularly African Americans. They have gutted the voting rights bill of 1965 voting rights law, and also Section 2 of the voting rights law, which was dealing about voting and districting. They're doing everything they can to have an oppressive regime over African Americans. The next thing I want to move into will be very quick a book review, and I try to inform, and I say it again and I say it again, that grandparents, please have your children to learn, speak to them about history and about Black Americans. I wanted to speak about, I told you about this book. I hope you can see it. Uncle Tom's Cabin, I was telling you certain things happened in it, and after that I would file it away in my library until next year I'll talk to another group of people. But there's one thing in this book, 2 things struck me. And lastly is when a young lady, little girl about 10 years old, this evil man, Simon Legree, sold her mother. And the child cried herself to sleep. All night long she cried. Think of that. Somebody takes your mother away, you will never see her again. Slavery was terrible. So I just wanted to mention that before I retire this book. And this Uncle Tom Cabin was written by Miss Harriet Beecham Storer. She was the wife of a minister, as I first stated. She went to the plantations and she talked directly with slaves, and she was told about all the horror that they had to endure. So the next one I want to lastly talk about on book review tonight is this book about President Obama. This man was an Indian guy who wrote this book, and his last name is Sewell. And one day I was watching television on the news, and he showed up to be interviewed, not about this book, but about something else. And I said, "Oh, that's the guy they got on the book in my bookcase here about Obama." And he talked. Oh, he hated Obama in this book. He criticized Obama that his daddy was anti-colonialism. I'm anti-colonial. People want self-determination. He criticized President Obama because President Obama, he said President Obama was down on America and was looking up to other countries, people that America has stolen wealth from, and that is true. Raw materials. In a lot of ways, our country has been imperialistic, no question about it. And he talked about Obama. Obama was trying to give them all the benefits from America. And lastly, I like to say I give him credit for one thing. He said in this book, Obama was born in Honolulu. 2 newspapers carried the story, and said lastly, he said that Obama and his wife were poor people that just got married. They had no money to go back to Kenya. You know, it costs a lot of money to fly on an airplane. But the fact of the matter is, he did honor Obama with this. But then I criticize him too for criticizing Mrs. Obama. He said that Mrs. Obama spent her money, bought a $1,000 pair of tennises, whatever, over $1,200 anyway. It was her money. She did what she wanted to do with her money. So he was just jealous. But the fact of the matter, Obama stabilized this country. Obama brought down the man who destroyed those buildings in New York. And Obama gave this country what other presidents could not do: national health insurance. And Republicans now, you heard McConnell, if they get charged in the Senate, they're going to still try to repeal Obama's health care. President Obama will go down in history as the only president ever brought that to this country. Like Roosevelt is the country president that brought Social Security into existence. So I like to always have a book review on matters dealing with African Americans. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have a special guest here tonight. Like you all know, this is an election year, and we must vote like never before. They have tried in every way to keep us from voting. In Georgia, you go to jail if you give somebody some water, standing in line to vote. And it's a privilege to vote. We could not, as African Americans in Georgia and in the South, we could not even vote in the Democratic primary. We could not vote in the Democratic primary. And I'm proud to say that Dr. Ralph McGill, pastor of First Time Baptist Church, went all over the state raising funds to take this case to the federal court. The case was brought to court by a gentleman, both of them were ministers in Columbus, Georgia. One of them was named Primus, and the last was Brewster. But the man Primus got the name on the case. Just like the Brown versus Vote Education, there was Mr. Griggs. He was one of the persons that also filed the suit, was involved in the suit. But I don't know why they named Mr. Brown. I don't know why they named Mr. Primus. But Mr. Primus got the case. And that was the case in 1948, in which we had an opportunity as African Americans in a country that's supposed to be a democracy to vote in a republic. So vote is very essential. And we must vote like never before, ladies and gentlemen. We cannot allow the Republicans to take over. And I want everybody in the, whether it's local, state, or national, right here in Savannah, Georgia, if you are Republican voting against any Democratic people, you are supporting Trump. Because I just told you, he is in charge and the standard bearer of the Republican Party, whether you like it or not, if you're Republican. And all of our Democrats, we need to to vote and do not allow these Republicans to do anything in this nation but sit down because they ruined. Like Mr. Trump, he's a cancer on this nation. He's a cancer on this nation. And more will be coming out when that sixth committee have hearings with American people can listen to all these things. He's taking stuff to his house down there in Marlboro, whatever you call that place where he lives. He's a thug. That's what Trump is. And had the audacity, crooked Hillary. Well, what is he? He's worse than being crooked. So I want to bring my guests on now because this is a local matter here now, and I know people listening other places, but maybe you could have something that you could do the same thing to your community, because we know all the school boards across the nation, particularly in the South, are being challenged. So I want to bring our guests in here today, and our guest is Mrs. Tanya Hall. She represents the 8th District. She's doing a marvelous job as one of the members of the Board of Education. Welcome, Mrs. Hall.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for inviting me.
Glad to have you, ma'am. Glad to have you. I want to ask you to introduce yourself to the people. I know that a lot of people know you. I know all your people in the 8th District know you. But just introduce yourself to us.
Okay, my name is Dr. Tanya Howard Hall. I am a product of the Savannah-Chatham County School System. I attended Tompkins Elementary, Scott Junior High, and Sopronia Tompkins High School. I was raised in the 8th District. My children are products of the Savannah-Chatham County Public School System, and my granddaughter currently attends a school in the school district. I am a retired educator. I bring in over 3 decades of educational experience. I have a wealth of knowledge in the area, excuse me, in the area of early childhood education, elementary education, curriculum and instruction, federal and state mandates and budgets, as well as school improvement initiatives. My commitment to education is personal. I understand what it feels like to start school behind other children. I repeated first grade. I know what it feels like to be enrolled in speech because I struggled with pronouncing certain words. And also, Mr. Thornton, I understand what it feels like to integrate a school. For 10 years of my life, my grandmother raised me in a small town in Perry, Florida. And she wanted me to have the best of education. So she sent me across town to integrate a school. It was not a good experience at all. I lived down there until about 1972. Then I came back to Savannah. But while I was in Perry, Florida, after being retained in first grade, I had a second grade teacher who literally changed my life, because every day she would always tell me when I go to college. So make a long story short, I'm here today with this testimony because my passion for education would not have ever been into existence if my second grade teacher lost her passion for teaching and learning.
Very, very well. You have a good, excellent background. Now, Mrs. Hall, let me ask you this question. A lot of people don't know the fundamental role of a person on the Board of Education. Tell us just, I know there's so many things that you all do. Just tell us some of the most important thing as a member of the Board of Education, make it policy for the community. Tell us a little bit of some of your things that you do.
The basic responsibilities and duties for a school board representative, the first thing we do, we enact policies. Another thing, policies and regulations. We adopt the budget. We engage the public. We have to make sure that we're out and about. And one thing about me, I am not a school board member who just shows up at a board meeting and vote. I'm very active in the community. I have a listening ear and a voice for the people. Another thing that the school board does is hire a capable superintendent. And notice I said capable because our superintendent is capable of what she's doing. We hire a capable superintendent, and we also have the authority to fire a superintendent who is not effective. In addition to that, we evaluate the superintendent by holding her accountable or him accountable. Another thing that we do is that we acquire information. We have to do a little research. You just can't expect to hold anyone accountable if you don't know how to hold them accountable. So it's very essential for us as a school board member to understand our duties and responsibilities. We consult with different departments of the school district, such as curriculum and instruction, such as technology and finances. So once we obtain this information, it helps us with making informed decisions as well as evaluating our superintendent. One thing that a lot of people get a little confused with, we do not tell the superintendent how to do her job. That's called micromanaging. That's not our job. Our job is just to tell her to do her or his job and hold them accountable. So the example that I like to use, if I ask my son to clean up his bedroom, I don't tell him what spray to use to spray the room. I don't tell him to how to put his shoes up in a certain order. I just say clean your room. So in other words, it's not our job to micromanage
Yeah.
the superintendent. And we cannot get involved in the operations of the school district. For example, and it was a struggle for me since I am a retired educator. A lot of times when constituents call on to me, I know the answer, but it's not my job to solve the problem. So we have to make sure that we take that information to the superintendent, and then she decides what she wants to do to resolve the problem. So we have to be very careful with that we don't micromanage the superintendent and get involved in the daily operations of the school, because that can cause a problem for the school district as a whole.
Very well. Now, Mrs. Hall, let me ask you this question. Back to the superintendent. I know she's doing an excellent job. Secondly, let me say, all over the country, a lot of these people, mostly white people, are raising sand about the students coming to school with masks and all. We do know we had this big problem with the COVID. It's coming all again in some places. It's terrible. It has not eradicated itself in the world. It has not. Some areas are still going bad. So I want to ask you this question, ma'am. What impact did the COVID have on the school district, period?
Well, it was a learning curve. COVID, we were introduced to COVID in the year of 2020. We were all excited about the year of 2020, of we're going to have a vision of 2020, but then COVID appeared. So we had to pivot from our traditional classroom settings. We had to pivot from our face-to-face instruction to a makeshift living room with virtual lessons. It was very difficult. A lot of decisions had to be made. We had people who thought that we should have masks or we shouldn't have masks. We had a lot of people, saying that, you shouldn't have virtual learning. We went virtual learning for 100%. Virtual learning means that everybody stayed at home and they worked from home. Then we returned to school. We had different phases. We had the hybrid model, rotating days. Some children that decided to stay home could work on their computers and zoom in on the classroom. So it was a lot of different changes and challenges. But we had to get adjusted. We had to pivot. If this was not an epidemic, this was a pandemic. So it was worldwide. And decisions had to be made based on a vote that I made. I voted no, that children should not come to school during a time when there were no defense for COVID. During the time when I made the no vote, there were no defense for COVID, meaning that there were no vaccine. And I was more concerned about life. I was more concerned about birthday celebrations, not funerals. So I took a stand. So therefore, since I took that stand, I'm being challenged, and that's okay. Everyone has the right to run for office. I believe in what I believe in. I've received notification from some people saying that, it's going to be an election and we're going to remember. But the way I vote has no bearings on an election. What's most important to me is the safety and health and well-being of our students, of our teachers, and our community. I am just thankful now that we do have a vaccine. Many of our faculty members and staff are vaccinated. It's private, so we just can't go around asking who's vaccinated and who is not vaccinated. But the district did offer incentives for those that chose to be vaccinated. They got a $500 stipend for getting the vaccinations because we just want to ensure safety. Now that we're back in school, the students are no longer required to wear a mask. It is the district's responsibility to ensure that our children are educated. We have to be concerned with their educational needs, their social and emotional needs as well as their health and safety. So we will continue to implement mitigation strategies. We will continue to monitor practices to ensure safety for all.
Very well, very good question. Answer to the question. Let me ask you this. In fact, the superintendent is a very uh, efficient lady, very extremely qualified, and she's one of my neighbors.
Oh, well, awesome.
I'm glad to say that. Yes, she lives around the corner from me. From time to time, I see her walking. But anyway, you're doing a great job, and I'm so happy that you are running again. How long have you served?
Well, the end of this year will be 4 years. And with the pandemic, it seems as if 1 year was taken away, but it would be 4 years. The election would be on the 24th. And since this is nonpartisan, it would be we don't have to worry about coming back in November to run again. However, we do have some districts that have 3 people, which could possibly cause them to have a runoff election, but that's not my case because it's only myself and another person. So we're looking
Well,
forward
I'm
to it.
saying this. I hope you would win. I'm asking everybody in that district to vote for you. But like I'm saying, I'll say it again. I say it all over the world. And I'm against any Republicans. Now, these Republicans, you belong to Trump. You're a member of the cult, whether you want to admit it or not. So I'm asking everybody in that district to vote for you. Let's keep the continuity going. I know Ms. Connie Hall doing a great job. And I understand, I have not met the gentleman personally, but I've heard a lot about him. I think his name is Mr. Smith, Reverend Smith, a new pastor of Bethlehem Baptist Church. Have not met him. I know Miss Hall and you, and Mr. Smith's predecessor was Mrs. Irene Hines. I think she served for about 18 years. She represented my district. So I'm very happy Mr. Smith will represent my district. I have not met him, but I heard very good things about him. So I
Yes,
want
sir.
to thank you for being on the show tonight, ma'am, and I'm asking everybody to vote for you. Let's continue this continuity of the work that you're doing. And
I
let's get
appreciate.
out and vote. Let's keep good people in office.
Yes, sir. I
Keep the
appreciate
Republicans.
the opportunity. I appreciate you are so full of knowledge and wisdom. And one of these days, I'm just going to have to come over and we can sit and drink some coffee together so you can just feed my
Well,
spirit.
well, the Lord
Anybody
has
that
been
you
good to
tell,
me.
Mr.
Yes,
Thornton,
ma'am. Thank you very much. Thank you
anybody
again, Mrs. Hall. Thank you
okay, let
very
me,
much.
let me say this right here. Anybody that can say that they sat and spoke with Dr. Martin Luther King, that's powerful because
I
my
met
children,
when I
my
was a
children
young man.
are aged.
When I
So
was a young man, head of the NAACP Youth Council, president of that, I met Thurgood Marshall. I met and corresponded till she died. Mrs. Constance Motley, if she had not died, she would have been the first lady on the Supreme Court. She argued the case to get married in the University of Mississippi. She argued to get the 2 blacks at the University of Alabama. She was the president of the Manhattan and New York district, and she was the first African American federal judge, Mrs. Constance Motley. And when I came on one day, cut on the television, heard she had passed, I was very sad. She and I used to communicate. So
wow.
my hands have touched a lot of great people. Miss Motley, Dr. King is my pastor house. I sat right next to him and talked with him. And as I said, when I was a young man, I met Thurgood Marshall, one of the greatest constitutional lawyers this country ever produced.
Yes.
Dr. King, Dr. Marshall went before the federal courts 32 times
Mm.
and lost only 3 cases. In fact, he argued one case, I read where he argued one case so magnificently, the judge came off the bench, took his hand, and praised him for such great litigation. So again, Ms. Hall, thank you very much for being on Straight Talk.
Thank you. And thank you for keeping it real and keeping it straight.
Yes, ma'am. That's what I tend to do as long as I live.
Yes, sir.
So I want to talk, I promised you last month that I would talk about Easter. This is the greatest month that God has given to the people, because this is the month in which his son paid the ultimate price for our salvation. Like the scripture says, neither with the blood of goats or calves, but by his own blood. You find it in the book of Ephesians. He entered once into the holy place, thereby receiving eternal redemption for us. Now, who wouldn't love him? Now, this is the month Easter that I told you I was going to talk about Easter boycott last month. It was the first time that I ever saw the African American community in unity. We boycotted Broughton Street, which was the main thoroughfare for shopping, for over 15 months. 15 months. In fact, Dr. King said that Savannah, Georgia was the most integrated city in the South. We marched, we boycotted, and you know Easter, black folk like to dress up. Oh, and all the girls during those days, young men, they had the Shirley Temple carriers. They went to the barber shops, got their haircuts. They packed the churches, saying Easter speeches. They really celebrated Easter. And I was so proud of our race during the 60s, during the boycott for 15 months. We had services at different churches every Sunday at 4 o'clock. And if you did not get there on time, every seat in the church was filled. I remember First African Baptist, and that church holds 1,600 people. And at 4 o'clock, there was not one seat in that church. I was so proud. And Mr. W. Law was the leader. Mr. Jose Williams, who worked with Dr. King, you saw him many times. He was one of the ones that would go to the city and set up everything, get ready for Dr. King to come in for the demonstration. And as I read a lot about Mr. The man from India, that Dr. King took that pattern after Gandhi. And one thing he said the other day, I read the other day, he said that we must be the change in which we want to see. That's what Dr. King took the pattern, what he did, without violence. Christ took the world with no violence. He was killed because he talked straight. Straight talk was what Jesus did. Absolutely. We think of the cross. And let me tell you this, what really makes me very upset during the Easter holidays. I get very upset. The white ministers, very few, I don't know of any. I heard Dr. Billy Graham talked about the man that, Simon of Cyrene was a black man that carried Jesus' cross. He was a Jew. He came to the festivities in Jerusalem for the Passover. And the Passover came when the Israelites left Egypt, and they were told to put blood over their doors, and the death angel will pass over them. That's when your Passover started. And I want to let you know, when they have these movies, rather than the condemn a movie, I'd rather just talk about the movie. I don't know which one it was. I don't know whether the greatest story ever told or whatever, other one or not. But one of them, they showed Sidney Poitier carrying the cross, a black man. And now and then they showed this other movie, Jesus going all the way with the cross, no black man. If you're going to tell the truth, be straight. Tell the truth. Black man carried Jesus' cross. Simon of Cyrene was his name. And Billy Graham said it one night on one of his classic programs. You black people ought to be extremely proud because the black man carried Jesus' cross. But the white ministers don't say that. They leave that out. How you going to tell the truth? So the man asked me one day, she said, do you know what they call the street when Jesus was carrying the cross in Jerusalem? I don't know whether the word is Greek. I don't think it's Hebrew. And I said, no, I don't know, but I'm going to read and find it out. And I searched it out with a book. I found that the road that Jesus carried his cross is named Via Dolorosa. That's interpreted means the way of sorrow. Going to the cross for your sin, my sins. And that's where we are today. And people have so much hate instead of love. And Easter, the time that he gave his life, that's what we celebrate. So I thought I'd just mention about the boycott that we had, that we changed Savannah, Georgia. Our city was integrated. They took down those signs. I remember when I was going to college one day, and I despise racism. But I have to say that it's a part of America's culture. Like the man said that I read, it's divisive, it's persistent, and it's permanent. Why? I don't know. The color of a man's skin has nothing to do with a man's ability, has nothing to do with a woman's ability. God made all the different flowers. He didn't make one flower. When the world was destroyed, all God had known to bring that out was a male and a female that will reproduce the world. So I thought I'd mention about our boycott, about Easter. And it's the greatest moment in the Christian gospel. Jesus dying for the sins of the world. Now, last in these 2 minutes, I want to speak about this terrible war that's going on. It's awful. That man has killed 142 children. And I think yesterday, they bombed the train station. They bombed the hospital with children and women were about to have babies. He's a monster. And some people got mad because what Mr. President Biden said about him. Called for he didn't use the word regime change, but they need to put somebody in there decent who care about life. This man Putin was over the KGB, which was like the FBI in our country, but he was a murderer. You saw on television all the things he did and doing right today. But I got to say the people are really fighting back to maintain their country. It's awful. Now, I want to say something. I don't know what you're thinking is about, and that is in the next few moments I have left here, is about Clarence Thomas. I don't have no respect for him personally. I don't talk about him. I talked about Thurgood Marshall. And when he was chosen by President Bush to be on the court, he said, these are the words that Bush said, that this is one of the most qualified persons I could find. He didn't look very hard. He did not look very hard to find a qualified black person. This man has no feeling for his race. Now, he's a man that went to Yale University on affirmative action. But when the University of Michigan was sued, he voted against allowing black people to come into the school on this program. And he's a man that went to school on affirmative action. What kind of man is he? Then now, look what he did to that lady, Miss Hill. He promised to marry that woman, had that woman run from place to place with him. I don't care about him marrying no white woman. A woman's a woman. You marry who you love. As far as what God set up, a man and a wife. But here's what I'm saying. This man, he's ridiculous. Thurgood Marshall said when he was chosen for that position, Thurgood Marshall said this: a black snake will bite you just as well as a white snake. And he's past a black snake. He's terrible. He's awful. Now look at his wife. Look at his wife. Now he should excuse himself. He was the only one that voted when they demanded that Trump turn those papers to this committee. 8 justices said he should do it. He was the only one who voted against it. He's a disgrace to the black race. Black children don't talk about him. They talk about Thurgood Marshall. Nobody will talk about him. He's disgraceful. He's absolutely disgraceful. And he's born right down the road there in Pinpoint, Georgia. He's disgraceful as a justice, as far as I'm concerned. He has never voted for anything that benefits people of his race. Now, when you talk about the voting, then look what happened from Selma to Montgomery. He knew African Americans have been denied the right to vote. How can he vote against things that help black people? And he's on the code. He's disgraceful. I wish I could meet him and tell him he's disgraceful to his face. But that's exactly what it is. He and Tim Scott. I wish I can. Both of them are disgraceful. And when we look at things that benefit this nation, like President Biden done, infrastructure bill, infrastructure. Now, anybody vote against infrastructure, Republicans or Democrats, stupid. So in other words, you don't care if you're in your automobile, you run down and hit a big bump, knock your front end out, wear out your tires, get on a bridge, let it collapse. Because you want to say he's a Democrat. Those are things that affect you. Now look at insulin. Look at insulin. Mr. Biden talked about insulin in the speech. Look at insulin. That drug was developed over 100 years ago. Now look how much we have to pay for it. He talked about that family. I mean, a lot of the same people who are running behind Mr. Trump, their families got insulin needs. They need insulin. House just passed and lowered the price of insulin for $35. He talked about $300 that people were paying. Something that was developed over 100 years ago. And you can buy it in Canada very, very cheap. America ought to be ashamed of itself. The Republicans ought to be ashamed of themselves. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen? Those people go right there and vote them same Republicans back in, and they don't care whether your child got insulin needs. Well, I don't care, let him die. How can it be? How can they go vote for the Republicans, put some back in office who don't care about your welfare, don't care about your living, don't care about your standard of living, and they vote the Republicans right back in, and they know what they're charging for insulin. Then there's the bill on wages. Now the next show I'm gonna tell you how much they make, and I'm showing the comparison between what the congressman make an hour, what you make an hour, and they don't want you to have it. So that's why I like to do straight talk. Just tell you just like it what it is. And I will tell you in the comparison next Monday on the show, like I told you about, I'll tell you about Easter, the boycott. I'm gonna tell you, show you what the House of Representatives make in an hour and what you make. There's a standard, but some people make more than that. We realize this, but you can't pay a person legally under what the national law says. But I will show you what they make. And they're fighting to give you what they want to give you an hour. So I want to talk to you about one more thing I'd like to mention. I don't have the information tonight, but my co-host, Ms. Gunn, will have it at the next meeting to talk about this project, 1619. And I showed you that book at the last show, that little girl, 6 years old, how much hell they gave her. A baby, throwing a bunch of people going like animals. And black folk have fought in every war they've had. As a matter of fact, Christopher Adams was the first person to die in the American Revolution. Christopher Adams, look the name up. He died, first black man. That first person died in the American Revolution. African Americans have fought in every war this country has engaged in. And came back. Even Watson, what the man in California was Watson. He was the governor. His dad, I can't blame him what his daddy does or what his daddy did, because he's dead now. But his daddy was an SS officer, one of the ones who carried out terrible things for Adolf Hitler and protected Adolf Hitler's bodyguard. And if a black man had done that, never would have let him be no governor. Don't care how much brains you have. But I thank God to show you today that this lady, Miss Justice Jackson now, qualified because God made her a different color. You shouldn't condemn me because God made me a color. Condemn God. He made me. And 99%, everybody got the same. Black folk get cancer, white folk get cancer. Black folk get heart attacks, white folk get heart attacks. Everybody's the same, other than the color of one's skin. That should not be a measure of an individual. It should be, as Dr. King said, the content of a person's character. And like I said that earlier, all those senators who ridiculed that lady and try to misjudge her, character assassination. I don't say they sleep at night. So I'm about to come to the end of my show for the night. I hope you enjoyed the show. I try to bring information that will be relative to you can live and learn. And I try to bring the information straight. So I like to say, concluding on the show tonight, is that we must continue to march until justice, dignity, and opportunity becomes a reality, because in the final analysis, all the unborn black children will be the beneficiary of all of our struggle and all of our efforts. If you want to call anything on this show, you can call and make a comment. I accept criticism. I'm not a perfect person, and I can still learn. So I'll give you the number that you can call and make any comments you wish to make about the show. If you have a question about anything that I said, a question that you want me to research, I'll do my best to find the answer. And the number is 912-413-0999. I repeat it again, 413-0999. And it has been a pleasure to speak to you tonight. And I'd like to ask you to support all of our sponsors that you will see on the tape as the show was in progress. Thank you very nicely. Have a nice evening, and God bless you.
like that.